This episode of Nintendo Expansion Pass is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our family of podcasts, head over to patreon.com/bossrushmedia or search for us on the Patreon app on your smart device. Thanks for helping us build something better. Hello everybody, welcome to Ranking Nintendo here on Boss Rush Games. I'm your host and licensed excited ADV. Joining me, he is the writer for Boss Rush Network, I should say. Please everybody, welcome Josh Martinez. Hello Josh.
Hello. Glad to be on, and yeah, I don't know. No, excited. This is some fun topics we're going to talk about.
Yes. So everybody, we are starting our Mario Kart series that we are going to be ranking. This is part 1. We're going to be doing 2 games per episode. So we are ranking Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64. So before we get into that, we just got some quick history. Before we even get to the history, Josh, can you introduce yourself to all those who are watching and listening to the podcast?
Yeah, so I'm Josh Martinez. I've been with Boss Rush since, when was it, July? No, late
Mhm.
last June. I came on as a writer and worked my way up, and now I'm a copywriter here, or copy editor, and have a lot of fun here. We do a lot of fun things here. I've been a lifelong Nintendo holder. Played Nintendo since I was a kid. A few other consoles here and there. I actually just got a PlayStation 5 today, so that is a whole new
Congrats.
experience for me. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah, we've got lifelong Nintendo. Like you said, we're talking Mario Kart. That's one of my first games I've ever played. So I am stoked to be here and talking about that. This is a fun franchise.
Yes. Um, and plus everybody, by the time you have watched this, we have talked about the Nintendo Direct that happened in February 8th, and it was amazing. Just gonna say, go check out me and Corey's Nintendo Direct recap. Uh, because hold on 1 second. All right. So yeah, we just had a great Nintendo Direct, and we got some shadow drops. We got to see the latest trailer for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We actually got some Mario Kart Deluxe for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Wave 4 DLC that they gave. Yoshi Island and Birdo will be in the game from Double Dash, which we'll be talking about that in coming weeks. So it was a really great direct about that.
Come on, Ed, you're being modest. Really great. That thing was phenomenal. That was a good.
I wanted to cry for how many announcements that came. Like I literally wanted to nerd out when I seen Professor Layton. I just like gasp. I good googly moogly gasp. Just like what?
I
Yeah,
mean, this was cool. I knew it was coming. I knew we were going to get a Metroid Prime remaster at some
mhm.
point. It came through the wire. I still lost it. It's I'm That's like one of my favorite games. That one got me. It was good. No, man, that saying that was a good direct. No, that was a phenomenal direct.
It's gonna be such a struggle because at this time of recording, everybody, Metroid Prime Remaster is out digitally for the Nintendo Switch, but the physical version is February 22nd, and we got 2 weeks to wait for the game. They're dropping it on a Wednesday. Like I think it's the last Wednesday of the month, or the third. No, it's yeah, Mm, no, the third Wednesday of the month. It's it's bonkers. That thing was amazing, and I don't know how they're gonna top it at E3. Now, yes, Nintendo may or may not be at E3. It's not confirmed yet. At this time of recording, but how do they top this direct?
I feel like we say that every direct. How do they top it? And then they do.
Yes. So we're gonna get into this history of Super Mario Kart and Mario 64. Mario Kart was created by Miyamoto, Tadashi Sugiyama, and Hideki Kono. The first game was released on August 27th, 1992 on the Super NES, and the series has a total of 14 games, 6 on console, 3 on handheld, 4 arcade games, and 1 mobile. At this time, the series has sold 164.43 million copies worldwide and growing. Each game has at least 4 cups with the choice of 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc. Mario Kart 64 allowed for 4 players racing on one console. It was released in Japan on December 14th, 1996, or in the US on February 10th, 1997, UK June 13th, 1997, and for the EU on June 24th, 1997. The main characters found in each game is mostly Mario, Luigi, Toad, Princess, Peach, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and Bowser or King Koopa, depending on how you want to say it. The eighth character is always seems to change from game to game. Super Mario Kart sold 8.76 million copies worldwide, and Mario Kart 64 sold 9.87 million copies worldwide. These games are available on Nintendo Switch Online, and if you have Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pass, you can play Mario Kart 64. Um, they just announced that Game Boy Advance and Game Boy will be coming to Nintendo Switch Online, so later on you'll be able to play Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy.
Yeah, that was the one I haven't played yet. So I
Yes,
was
that.
excited to see it. I mean, it looks a lot like Super Mario Kart, but
Mhm.
I mean, it looks a little bit more polished. I mean, Game Boy Advance, it's a little more polished, but I'm excited to try it out to see. That's the only one I haven't played before, so I'm excited to finally get a chance to do it.
If you want to be a Patreon producer, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/bossrushmedia, and find out which tier is right for you. Our Patreon producers at the $5 tier or higher for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, and Rebecca Jewell. Thank you for your continued support.
Yes. So we're gonna jump into Super Mario Kart. Uh, so Mario Kart. Uh, Super Mario Kart was the first, of course, everybody knows the game, but they dropped it when the rest of the series came out and just called it Mario Kart. Now, when you start the game, you have two options: 50cc and 100cc. And mostly at the end of the game, if you get to the last cup, because they have 3 cups: the Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, and the Star Cup. Mostly when you get to the Star Cup, the last one is Rainbow Road. There's 5 tracks in each. I mean, yeah, there are 5 tracks in each cup, and when you beat all 15 and get ranked first place, it opens up the special cup, um, which ends up giving it 20 cups in Super Mario Kart. Um, uh, they do have mode 7, and the way that you play is that you pick one of these characters and you'll start in the 8th place. A countdown will happen and you would drive, where you're able to collect coins and collect power-ups to help you fend off the other opponents, other racers, or you could stop those racers by using certain weapons like the green shell, which has a straight attack, or the red shell, which has kind of like almost a homing missile in the sense that automatically becomes the attack. You could throw out a banana peel, which will make characters spin and lose coins. You have a star where you're invincible, where you'll go a little bit faster, nothing can touch you. You have lightning, where it will shrink the other players and kind of like mess up with the sound, so you can run over them and everything. Uh, and then of course you have the the mushroom, where if you use it you speed up quickly and everything. So those are kind of the power ups in that game. If you happen to fall off a edge in one of the tracks, or certain tracks that are high, you will be carried away by Lakitu. He is one of the Koopa Troopas in Super Mario Brothers that's in the cloud, where he throws out these enemies um, at you. He would come and fish you out and place you on the ground. You will lose your position depending on where you're at, and then you have to kind of like start over to get back to your place in that.
Yeah, that happened to
So
me a lot this game.
yes. Um, with this, you press the B button to accelerate, the A button to use your weapons, or you can hold down and hold the A button to block it, uh, attack or anything. And you would use the R button to jump, and when you land to make slide, when you jump while making turns, you would drift in there and then be able to go for it. So this game is available, like I said, on NSO on the Super Nintendo, and I remember playing this game in 1992 with my next door neighbor, and I will always pick Cooper Trooper. I because he had kind of like the balance, speed and turns. Because I'm not good at driving games. I will fall off some of the places and things. But I remember playing this game at the school, and we did all the levels 50cc, and then we all did 100, and then my friend got so good at the game he was able to beat 150cc. So we actually got to get all the gold cups and see the ending of the game, which was just the same ending like all the other cups. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, so in 1992 I was 1, so there's my age. But so I didn't play this game on initial release. I played it for the first time on Monday earlier this week when and this one's a hard one because going back, yeah, I mean when you grow up with games, that's always a lot of fun. You always have a lot
Mhm.
of fun with that and everything, but when you have to go back after you experience Mario Kart 8, it's always kind of jarring to do that. So going back to this game, I appreciated it for what it was, but you know, I had some fun. It's fun to see some of those courses. I did enjoy Rainbow Road, but other than that, it was a tougher game for me to get into, but I'm like I said, I'm young. My first Mario Kart game was not this one, and getting into it was it was good for what it was at the time, I think. And that's not me trying to bash on any older game. I had a hard time. The controls were kind of tricky for me. Was the main part with it.
Mhm. And another thing with this Mario Kart is that everything is flat. There are obstacles in it. Like there's some bumps that you can hit or you could try to jump over. There are pipes that is in the road. There's mud at some places that would slow you down. And it's not very visually appealing like you see on today's games, because it was 16-bit. It was their first game, so it wasn't kind of like big or anything. Um it did have replay value because of the different cups, and it also had a battle mode. So no, not a battle mode, I'm sorry, a time trial mode, where you
Hmm.
are able to like race against other players and stuff. When you kind of got to Mario Kart 64, that's when you had the battle mode where you could pop people's balloons, but we'll get into
Right.
that a little bit later and
Well,
everything.
and I mean this game for what it was. this was interesting when I went through this game and I compared it to. I mean, obviously the next games. This is probably the least Mario Kart game in the franchise. And when I say that, Mario Kart, what is it? It's crazy. You're people throwing shells,
Mm-hmm.
people taking shortcuts. This game,
Yes.
maybe once you would have an item box, whereas other courses in later games, you'd have them all over the place. So this one felt more like a racing game with Mario characters in it. It was more about, for me, it felt like more of a game where you want to race well. You want to do, um, you're racing, and that's the focus of it. Whereas the other ones have more of that like arcade feel. You're racing, but you got all this other crazy stuff going on. So when that was my big impression of watching it or playing it was, I'm in a racing game and there just happens to be Mario, Luigi, and everybody else in there. And it was a unique experience, really, to say the least, on that one. But it's cool to see it on those routes. I'm glad that they continued on to where they're at now, where it's a good balance of craziness and racing.
Yes. I know this is the one for Rainbow Road. You were able to try the cheat jump, where if you got enough speed and you was about to go downhill, you would jump. And if time right, you can land to the other side and take first place, and then just keep driving. But you had to
Yeah,
have like a mushroom with you, and you had to time it right. So that became one of the big things for it. Um, I enjoyed this one because it was just something brand new. I think this is when they started experimenting more with the Mario brand. Because at the time, Mario was literally just platforming games. Definitely, he would make character appearance. So, like if you play Mike Tyson's Punch Out or Punch Out for some people, Mario was the referee and everything.
right,
But yeah, but the other Mario games weren't really different or anything. They were really just 2D games and stuff. So when Mario Kart came out, this is when they started experimenting of putting him in different genres of games. Having this arcade racing games. And then you had like Where's Mario or Hotel Mario, stuff like that. But Mario Kart what really was successful as a game and everything. Um Now I will tell you, I hated those red shells. I hated them so much because this is in Mario Kart. This is when the computer really started to cheat in the game. Like depending on where your place was at, you would get certain items. So if you needed like a green shell or something or a banana peel, chances are you weren't going to get one because they wanted the computer or your friend to have a chance to take number one. And just to let everybody know, back in 1992, there wasn't no on. Of course, there wasn't no online, so the game had to be done in split screen when you did two players.
right. And I'd
So,
always cheat when my brothers would get the other side.
yeah,
Now
I
that's
always. Oh, go ahead.
I just gonna say that's just crazy that we used to play it. Just is so normal. And even if you play Mario Kart 8 like locally, having that split screen, I grew up with it, but a lot of kids these days just don't understand that that's like how it is. And I mean, you see that picture of the people with the cardboard blocking the other screen, and I mean that it's a joke, but that's what it was like. Like you screen watching, that was a thing, and this game was like a big part of that, as well as future games up until you started getting online capabilities with them.
Yes. Well, especially when you got to Double Dash, because in Double Dash, as we'll get later into that one, um, you could be teamed up together for two players and switch out and everything, and work your magic or your gameplay that way. But that's pretty much Super Mario Kart. The tracks are very random. They're not anything interesting and stuff. So uh, we're gonna move on to Mario Kart 64. Now this one was kind of big because the world was in 3D and everything for this one. So when you start the game, there are 4 cups. You have the Mushroom Cup, Flower Cup, Star Cup, and Special Cup. But this time, you only had 4 tracks. So the Mushroom Cup, you had Luigi's Raceway, Moo Moo Farm, Koopa Troopa Beach, and Calamari Desert. And Flower, you had Toad's Turnpike, Frappe Snowland, Choco Mountain, and Mario Raceway. In Star Cup, you had Wario Stadium, Sherbert Land, Royal Raceway, and Bowser's Castle. In the Special Cup, you had DK's Jungle Parkway, Yoshi's Valley, Banshee Boardwalk, and Rainbow Road. Now, this is where the levels get interesting because Yoshi's Valley, for instance, when you go on it, it has 4 different pathways. And one is the correct way to be a shortcut. The other way may take you a long time to find out your way um, through it. So they started giving these levels and tracks dimensions and stuff with shortcuts. Um, you know, a possible way to knock your opponent off and put them further back in to it. Uh, so, um, what are your thoughts on Mario Kart 64?
I should preface this with this was my first Mario Kart game. I grew up on this. The console I remember first getting was a Nintendo 64, and I know that shows my age. I'm a youngin. I'm only 31, but um, excuse me. I think this one, man, this one is a lot of fun. I went back and I played all of them, the whole all 16 courses, and I had just as much fun as I did back when I was 6, 7, 8 that I did now. It's a fun one. Like you mentioned, Yoshi Valley is fun. My favorite was Wario Stadium because
Yeah.
I'm. I mean, how fun is it to snipe those people right before they go over that big jump, and then they got to go all the way back?
I
And yeah,
was so mad at that because it always happened.
no, I did it too when I was going on this playthrough. I went and Yoshi was right behind me. I threw a green shell, hit him. I didn't mean to. I just was throwing a green shell behind me, hit him. Then all of a sudden I see the status bar. He's in second. Then all of a sudden he's gone. I don't know where he went all the way down to eighth. I think he finished in sixth in that race. But I'm like, this game, and that was the crazy thing. This game is unforgiving because not just Wario Stadium, Choco Mountain, you fell off on if you were on 100 or 150 cc and those guardrails were gone, you fell off. You had to go do half the lap again.
Oh
um,
yeah.
what's another one? Yeah, there's a couple of them that they were not forgiving. If you screwed it up, you were at the end. Like you had a lot of ground to catch up.
I'm looking at Toast Turnpike, and I remember going through all the trucks and traffic, and I think this has a mirror verse where
Hmm.
the tracks were in reverse. So when you did Toast Turnpike, instead of you following traffic, you were heading into traffic, and I'm like, oh no.
See that one's cool because that one's got an interesting place. And so I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I grew up in Los Angeles in the
Mhm.
90s. So going anywhere, anybody from Southern California knows freeways are the way to go. That's how you get anywhere in Los Angeles. And there's just so many freeways. It's just like that Saturday Night Live sketch where they're always saying, take all these different freeways to get wherever you need to go. That's what it's like. So driving on Toad's Turnpike, just it reminded me of like going to school because we take the freeway to get there. And I just for me as a kid, I'm like, this is cool. I'm driving on the freeway. I didn't even care that it was cars coming at me, cars going against me, whatever it was. That was kind of just a unique thing to throw other cars onto the track with you that weren't racing.
Yeah. I remember Moo Farm. I used to sometimes run into the cows and everything. Uh the calamari desert, because that had that train. I will always try to race the train and
Hmm.
everything. Man, I remember Mario Kart 64 just being so cool and innovative. And then when me and my friends got together and we was doing a four player, it kind of made the game hard because it shrunk the boxes. Because it was
Hmm.
still, local play, everybody playing on one system. But because you don't get to see the top half or the bottom half, you only got this small little window. You really had to memorize the tracks and
Yeah, no.
everything.
Well, and the crazy thing, some of those tracks, because Super Mario Kart had shortcuts, but they weren't as big of a deal as this game did. Because you got that little tunnel on the Koopa Troopa Beach level
Hmm.
where you've got to go over that ramp, get into that little tunnel, and then you come out the waterfall. And I mean, I used to joke that was the jump that separated the children from the adults because that was a hard little one to hit because you had to like just line it up perfectly. Calamari Desert was another one that, like you said, I don't know if it was a shortcut, but you could go into the tunnel where the train went.
Hmm.
Um, when I used to mess around with my brothers, we used to go into different parts you weren't supposed to. Royal Raceway, you could go drive up to the castle. You weren't supposed to, but I did it anyway, just because it was kind of weird that you had it so wide open. You could go to all these different spots that you weren't supposed to, and that was just cool for that game, I thought. And I don't know if that was hardware limitations or what, but it almost sometimes I wanted to explore the levels. I don't know. It was kind of a weird side effect of that game.
It's it's something of a moral, I would say, that they were able to put all of the things. And I know that they reduced the tracks because they with the in Nintendo 64 it had limited space because they were doing 3D. They had this kind of rendering for like if you think of Killer Instinct or you think of Donkey Kong 64 and stuff, they kind of use those kind of graphics and everything. So it kind of like took up a lot of data. So they have reduced the tracks on here and everything. Um
Right. Well, and overall, these tracks, because the first game, Super Mario Kart, the the tracks were very forgettable. I mean, you had basically four or five different templates. Like there was ice level, the donut plains, the Bowser's Castle, the boardwalks. All those were there's different variations of this. This game had 16 unique tracks
mhm.
that are memorable that are still being. We just got what a Calamari Desert remake as well as a Choco Mountain. I mean these tracks are still getting redone and put into the newer games because they're so memorable. There's so much about them that this is really enjoyable to go back and going back to those. It really felt like kind of like coming home after a vacation. It's just for me, this is such a comfortable game. This is one that, like I said, I grew up. Me and my brothers and my dad would do like tournaments. We'd have like my mom might work late, so my dad's like, "We're gonna have a Mario Kart tournament," and just having those memories behind this game, as well as just how memorable it is. It felt like Mario Kart. It like, and when I say that, I mean the items were all there. You could,
Mhm.
there was a lot of craziness that happened. The blue shell, this is its introduction, and
Uh
that's caused many of controllers to go through the TV screens. So yeah, it's just this is a game that just you can. It it obviously needed a lot more work to get to 8, but it really laid the foundation for what Mario Kart could be.
I really wonder, like, if Mario Kart, Super Mario Kart wasn't successful, would they still have the series? Because in a way, for people who don't know, after Mario came out, there have been like a ton of cart based character games. Sonic the Hedgehog had his, and his was like Sonic R, where he was actually racing. Um, there was some PlayStation One games. I think Crash Bandicoot didn't have his just yet, in a sense. And I
I
know
think it
people
was in
like,
response to Mario Kart. Like I think all these games came like in response to what Mario, like Diddy Kong Racing. That's one that came
Yes.
as a not a copycat, but they saw the success that Nintendo had with this type of game that they wanted to build on. I mean, you remember the old Crash Bandicoot outside the Nintendo headquarters? Sony had a big competition with
Hmm.
Nintendo, and Crash was kind of the face of that. And having a Crash racing game, I mean, they're trying to compete with what Mario Kart did. And I mean, at the end of the day, there's only one that's lasted.
Well, yeah, and like for Sega, like Sonic Transform, that racing game was really good. It really was. Um, and I remember there was one of them that called, I think I cannot think about it, but there was a commercial that was trying to, you know, be edgy and everything, and they made fun of Mario Kart, and it's like Bloom or something like that. And they ended up closing their doors because the game didn't sell well. You
Right.
know, there's something about the Mario Kart series that they it's just something about this game. The competitive nature is there, but I think because the tracks are so well designed, and there's something that motivates you or that clicks in your mind that I gotta get number one. You know, you don't like seeing at the bottom that you only got like 3 coins, or you didn't get no coins, or stuff like that.
Hmm.
So it's kind of you learning the tracks, you know how to drift just right, because the drifting in the later games became more easier because you were able to detect on how to pull it off. You know, they was giving you visual cues that you could use to pull them off. Like, we didn't know nothing about drifting in racing games and stuff. Um, Especially when you were in the arcade scene, because for racing, a lot of that stuff was for Sega. You know, before Nintendo even did Mario Kart, Sega had the Outrun series and everything, and on there you were able to drive, but you had to know how to drive stick. Uh, because you didn't really have automatic, you had low or high, and if you didn't know how to drive stick, you were like going to lose a lot in that game. And it just
Well,
seems that Mario. Oh, go ahead,
I
Josh.
was just gonna say there's something really simple about Mario Kart. It's hold a button down,
Hmm.
you know, control which way you go, and have that trigger button to launch it. It's a very simple mechanic, and that's the thing is everything's changed on screen, but the control system's largely stayed the same, minus that wheel with the Wii. But other than that, everything's largely stayed the same. I mean, you don't got to worry about the stick shift. You don't have to worry about everything else. And like you said, drifting became a lot easier. I drifted in this game and I spun out a few times and I forgot that that happened. Like I'm just so used to drifting in 8 or 7 and you can be just fine. But when you drift in this game, if you don't do it right, they'll make you pay for it. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's just overall the simplicity of it, I think, is what makes this whole franchise last. And that started with Mario Kart 64, that just really streamlined everything and just launched where the series goes. Like Super Mario Kart was one thing, but Mario Kart 64, I think, really was like, okay, this is what we want this to be. Now let's just build on it. And you can see where every other game has really built on Mario Kart 64 in particular.
Yes. The game was Blur, Blur. That
Okay.
was the game that was making fun of Mario Kart. But now I gotta ask before we get to our ranking and wrap this up. Why is why do you think Double Dash is one of the most controversial out of all the Mario Karts? People put Double Dash as number one, but now Mario Kart 8 is like the battle, yet everybody loves Mario Kart 8. I mean, people love Mario Kart 8, definitely when you look at the sales, but something about Double Dash is special. But there's some people who do not like that game.
I think, and I mean, we you and I we're lifelong Nintendo fans. We know what Nintendo does.
Yes.
when they get a gimmick, they lean into it very hard. And I think the gimmick of Double Dash is what made it so divisive. Just, it can be really fun to have two players, have your buddy be there. I mean, that game was set up perfectly so you could have your little brother play and not have to control it. You can drive it, and your little brother can be in charge of throwing shells or whatever it is. But to some people, they didn't like that. They just were like, well, I just want to race on the kart game. I think it's the gimmick because if you look, Mario Kart, they still had some gimmicks going on,
Hmm.
but they don't get as gimmicky as Double Dash. And I think that's because people really like the simplicity of I just want to drive my kart. I personally did enjoy Double Dash. I didn't play it a ton when it was out, but it was a cool mechanic. Like I thought it was cool. I don't know if I rank it in my top, which obviously we'll get there at some point. But
Hmm.
it was fun. It was a for what it was. It was fun. But I think it's the gimmick that really splits people because whenever Nintendo puts a gimmick in, people either love it or hate it. And in this case, it was an even split down the middle.
I think for me it was like when we get to it and talk about it. I think I love the fact that you were able to have two items instead of one. Because if you got the one for yourself, you could switch it to your other character and then have another. And so there was strategy put into the game. You could have one defensive item or one helpful item. So like if I got a star, I could switch to my other person and hope I get a banana peel or something. So that way if a shell came to me, like a red or a blue shell came to me, uh I could throw out my banana. Oh, someone got a blue shell, they about to throw it to me. Let me switch and then throw out my star. Like it became more strategic and everything. And
Hmm.
the drifting really came easy. But some
Yeah,
people, like you said, don't like that.
yeah, and I think what was cool was Mario Kart 64 set that up because you could have two items if you did it properly. Like, say you got a green shell, then you
Hmm.
hold it behind you and you hit another box, you got a second item, but you couldn't use it. You couldn't switch like you do in Double Dash. It's kind of a I like to play defense a lot when I play Mario Kart. So if I have a banana, I hold it behind me so that if somebody throws a shell at me, it'll hit the banana rather than me. But in Mario Kart 64, they kind of you can see that foundation for Double Dash. It
Hmm.
was there, but like you said, in Double Dash, you could switch. You could be strategic. You could say, "Oh, I've got a banana. I don't want a banana. Let me flip around, get a star, get something else, and then you're in good shape." It forces you to think, and I think that's also another thing. People don't want to think when they're playing their racing game, but it's fun. It adds a new wrinkle to a game that you know is constantly expanding. They did away with it in the future, but it was definitely a unique thing that forced you to think a little bit more when you were racing.
And and we're gonna wrap this up. It made out of Double Dash for the rest of the other games, they changed the item boxes because they're like now in diamonds and stuff. Where on Super
Hmm.
Mario Kart, it was like the thing on the ground. So if you just hit one, you at least got something. You could literally miss a item if a character was in front of you and they got it. Or you could have your item stolen because they used a boo. And boos used to take your items and stuff. And I used to be so frustrated by that. But everybody,
Well,
it's going to be time for us to actually rank these two games. So, we're going to start with number two, and then we're going to place one against number one. I gotta say, I think I'm gonna put Super Mario Kart as number two, and Mario Kart
yeah,
64 at one.
I think that's what I go. Super Mario Kart, like we said, it was, and I think when I look at all of them, but the comparing these two, Super Mario Kart just it was a racing game that just happened to have Mario. It really forced me to have to like learn the controls, which were hard, um, and also this was something that was unique to it. It had 5 laps, so at times if I was done with the race, like I'm like, oh, I'm just done. I still got 2 more laps to
Mm-hmm.
go extra. Whereas 64, you had 3 laps. Um, the laps were usually different. Like that Rainbow Road took like 9 minutes to get through, but um, the Super Mario Kart 5 laps was unique. I think I put it down there just at number 2, just because um, it was a difficult one for me to get into. There was a lot of unique things about it that it didn't click for me. I appreciated it for what it was, but I just don't. I can't. I don't think I'll be going back and playing it anytime soon.
Well, everybody, that's gonna be it for Ranking Nintendo. Like I said, we got 3 more episodes where we'll be ranking the GBA game, the GameCube. We have Wii, we have DS, we have 3DS, and we have Wii U/Switch. So, Josh, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can, like we mentioned earlier, you can find my writings on the Boss Rush Network, bossrush.net, writing about everything. And also, you can follow me on Twitter, jmartinez064. I tweet about everything. Ed, you appreciate this. I've been tweeting a lot about wrestling. I'm a big wrestling fan.
Yes.
So I've been watching all of the Rock's matches from pay-per-view. So I've been tweeting about that a lot lately. So that's where I do a lot of my stuff. So if you
There's
want a
something
good
about,
time, and
I think,
what was
Roman
that?
Remain.
Roman
He's been
Reigns. Oh my goodness, what a
he's been coming up lately.
mm-hmm. Well, and he's crazy. So he is The Rock's cousin. It's Rikishi's nephew. So a lot of guys from the late '90s, 2000s, and he's just a phenomenal story he's done. Man, it's one of the best that WWE's ever done. We could do a whole podcast about that. I mean, I love wrestling. It's a lot of fun. Um,
I got to talk to Corey. Ranking Nintendo, the THQ wrestling games, SmackDown, No Mercy. Like THQ, we just talked a little bit about the N64 for Mario Kart. If you were not a wrestling fan, you were missing out because the wrestling games on N64 was top tier.
Well, and don't forget, you had WWF games, but then WCW had their WCW NWO games that were a lot of fun. I mean, that was the competition at the time, was those two companies, and that extended into video games. That's
Yeah.
like I think WWF No Mercy is largely considered the greatest wrestling game. I mean, everybody's got their opinion, but a lot of people agree on that. But that goes head to head with WCW NWO Revenge. Like those are just some fun arcade fighters that are just, I don't know. Was a unique time in gaming and wrestling and everything.
A big salute out to you because they were the king of wrestling. But that's for another discussion.
I told you that I could do hours on this.
Well, everybody, that's going to be it for this Ranking Nintendo. Nothing too big yet. When we get into more of the series, we will have more to discuss. With that, everybody, have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time on Ranking Nintendo. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Nintendo Expansion Pass is part of Nintendo Power Block and is a product of Boss Rush Media LLC. The show is recorded from our headquarters in Akron, Ohio, and is hosted by me, Edward Varnell. My co-host is Corey Deering. You can find Corey at I Am Corey at HD on Twitter and Instagram, as well as hosting the Boss Rush Podcast and Tower Casuals, the Destiny Podcast. Follow Expansion Pass as part of Nintendo Power Block and on all social media platforms at Power Block Podcast. You can also follow Boss Rush Media and Boss Rush Network on all major social media platforms. Join the Boss Rush Network Discord and Facebook groups to interact with other friends and fans. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.